to $3,413. One dependent, you would get the $275, and anything above that, the $450. And if you make less than $2,625, you'll get the $450.
Okay.
Yes.
And how is the money dispersed?
So as soon as a child is approved, hopefully we have knowledge of which early childhood center the child will be going to. If not, we can work with parents if they require it to find a placement for them. And we send the money directly to the early childhood center that the child attends.
Yes.
So parents don't have to do anything other than keep open communication with us if their situation changes, if their contact information changes, or if the child moves to a different center. Other than that, the parents have no stress.
Okay.
No stress with it.
And if the child moves to a different center, is there an obligation on the center that they're moving from to also inform the ministry of that move?
Well, the obligation is on the parents. We get registers 2 times a month from the early childhood centers.
Okay.
So we would pick up whether a child has moved from one center, because their name would either be removed from that center's register, or we would see absent, and we would be able to contact parents. But the obligation is on the parents to let us know if the child has moved to a different center. And then our quality or accountability check then is the attendance registers that we get from early childhood centers.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we want to talk about the uptake for this program. Over the years, have persons, families taken advantage of this opportunity that the government has offered to them. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of it upon the seas.
The Bay Islands of the northern shores of Honduras, including Utila, Rotan, and Guanaja or Panaca, along with the islets of Elaine, Barbarat, and Murat, saw a rather rapid and dramatic settlement of Caymans. Color and class was the prominent social hierarchy, more so than the Cayman Islands, with 319 whites to 1,229 non-whites.
Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
I remember playing at 7 Mile Beach as a boy, eating mango by the sea, learning how to snorkel. My mother, she worked so hard to provide for our family so that we could have those moments. Seeing her age has been tough. That strong, capable woman, now in need of daily support, it's my time to be strong for her.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
2020 means perfect vision. And if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Just 2 of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road. Sending money to your family overseas shouldn't be a full-day process. Stop waiting in lines. MoneyGram, the safest and most convenient way to send money worldwide, offering 3 convenient locations: Shedden Road, Baden Water Sports in West Bay, and at FIS Brack Agency in Cayman Brack. MoneyGram by Financial Integrated Services. Visit fiscayman.com for more information on MoneyGram services. MoneyGram, bringing you closer.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're talking about the Early Childhood Assistance Program that is funded by the government of the Cayman Islands. Some people have a tendency to complain to say government is not doing enough, government is not committed to education in the Cayman Islands. But here's one good example of thinking about our future, our children of the Cayman Islands. There are programs in other jurisdictions, Head Start programs and things of that in the U.S. Some states in the U.S., they had what they call a Head Start program, funding for children as well. So this conversation is taking place with Ms. Carol Bennett, who's the Senior Policy Advisor and Manager of the Early Childhood Care and Education Unit within the Ministry of Education. Before we went to the commercial break, we said we wanted to talk about the uptake for the program over the years, what we have seen. We know that there are situations where some families are struggling to make ends meet. We hear commercials all the time about Cayman not being a cheap place to live, a very expensive place to live as well. So with all of those things taken into consideration, what has the uptake been? The uptake is actually really, really good. We have quite a lot of families applying. However, we also see a lot, or feel that there's a lot of families who do not apply because of they perhaps don't trust the confidentiality of the process. Also, a lot of families still, or some families still think that they shouldn't apply when the funding is available, or they write themselves off from the very beginning. I'm not going to get that anyway. And those are the families that we really come on the radio for as well, to see to assure them the process with which we operate the Early Childhood Assistance Program funding is confidential. We respect people's privacy. We are also now tied to the data protection law. So that happened this year. We have, as I've been there since 2011, and we have never had one single complaint where a family has said, I've heard my information on the road. You all have divulged information that I do not want to other people. And I think that's a pretty good track record that people can rest assured that, as we say, the process is confidential, the outcome is confidential. Of course, we have to share the names with the early childhood centers that the children attend, because they have to know who we're paying for. However, none of the parents' information is shared. So we have their financial information, their contact information, their home address, everything. None of that is shared with early childhood centers. And that information is not subject to any freedom of information request as well?
As far as I know, it's not.
Unless the person is requesting information about themselves that you may hold.
Right.
Other than that,
yes.
I would imagine. Yes.
Right. All of that would be redacted. I'm sure they can ask for numbers, for amounts that we've spent, for number of children that we've catered to, that kind of stuff. But that's not information that would identify a specific family or give their information.
Okay. Now, if I were a potential applicant, would I be able to submit only a copy of my Cayman passport to establish my nationality?
No, actually. We have to determine that the child is Caymanian by a few different routes. Parents have the option to them. Of course, they can submit the letter of acknowledgement or confirmation from Immigration Department. We would accept that, definitely. If the child or parent is Caymanian by being a status holder, status documents. However, if the child is a born Caymanian and the parent is a born Caymanian, we would need a copy of the parent's birth certificate showing that at least one of their parents was born in Cayman, and then a copy of the child's birth certificate showing that parent, at least one of their parents, is Caymanian. So for your purposes then, a parent wouldn't necessarily have to go to the
immigration department to get a letter acknowledging the fact that the child
possesses status? If they have it already available, that's an easy way to prove that the child is Caymanian. If it's not already available, you do not have to go out and do that to satisfy this process.
Okay, now, and I think you may have answered this one already, but it may be helpful just for it to be repeated. Is a child eligible if the parents have Caymanian status?
Yes. Children of parents who have Caymanian status are eligible as long as those parents receive Caymanian status prior to the child's birth. Mm-hmm. So the child would have to be born to a Caymanian to be Caymanian unless they too have received status. So if Caymanian status, children and parents are 100% eligible for it.
Mm-hmm. What about legal guardianship?
Legal guardianship would not say what nationality the child is, but a legal guardian can apply for the funding. So if a legal guardian is a non-Caymanian, but the child is Caymanian, that non-Caymanian legal guardian can apply, and we would just look at their income information.
Okay.
So as long as the child's Caymanian.
And then again, for reassurance purposes, the funds do not go directly to the applicant. They go to the institution that the child
to the
will be
early
attending.
childhood center that the child attends. And so far, we have had no trouble with actually the payments to early childhood centers. We work very collaboratively. Ms. Renee Barnes, who runs the funding, who manages the funding, is very open. She has open lines of communication with the early childhood centers. They call with questions. If a parent is looking to move centers and they go and say, my child's on ECAP funding, the schools call right away and ask if they are, and we confirm that they are or are not. So there's open communications between early childhood centers and the early childhood unit.
Okay, I think we have time for one more scenario before we go to the 8 o'clock news. Here's a scenario. I am not Caymanian, but my child's other parent is Caymanian, and my child is Caymanian. Am I eligible to submit an application even if the Caymanian parent refuses to sign the application or is deceased or out of the jurisdiction?
Yes, this service is to Caymanian children, so definitely that non-Caymanian parent is welcome to apply and encouraged to apply. We have situations where the Caymanian parent is deceased. Unfortunately, the Caymanian parent might be incarcerated and not available to sign the form, or the Caymanian parent might say, no, actually, I don't want to sign the form. And then the child is the one that would be at a disadvantage. So if that non-Caymanian parent can prove that the child is Caymanian by any of the other means that I just told you about, that non-Caymanian parent is encouraged to apply.
Okay, folks, we've reached the top of the hour, 8 o'clock news. When we return from the news, the conversation will continue with Miss Carol Bennett, who's the Senior Policy Advisor and Manager for the Early Childhood Education Program in the Ministry of Education. That conversation will continue after the 8 o'clock news, so please stay tuned.
Thank you, Mr. Connor, and studio time now by Foster's is 7:59.
It's Frozen Food Month at Foster's. With tons of frozen options to choose from, you can feed your family a fully balanced or dietary-specific meal while reducing waste and saving money. Many of today's frozen options are crafted with fresh ingredients and taste-tested by real chefs, so you can rest assured your family will enjoy their dinner. Plus, with quick freezing methods, nutrients and freshness are locked in, so you can get the most out of frozen. Enjoy Frozen Food Month all March long at Foster's.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by Value Med Pharmacy, with 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and an Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit Value Med, more than just a pharmacy. ValueMed Pharmacy is your community care partner for health and wellness needs. We offer convenient prescription processing at the counter and online at value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com. With pickup available at the Walkers Road or Boddentown location. We also accept transfer prescriptions from other pharmacies. More than just a pharmacy, shop ValueMed for personal care and beauty products from trusted brands, perfume and gift sets, Hallmark and greeting cards, baby clothes, footwear, handbags, swimwear, home decor, toys, school supplies, and stationery. And home convalescence aids like wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, canes, and hospital beds. With 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and in Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit ValueMed, more than just a pharmacy.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Island.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. St. George's Preschool is one of the latest education facilities to announce they'll be closed today as a result of the raging fire at the Georgetown landfill. Mark Ray with the Department of Education Services tells Radio Cayman several others are shuttered as well.
Further to the previous notice about the closing of Georgetown Primary School because of the landfill fire, we would like to announce that we will also be closing the Cayman Islands Further Education Center, better known as CIFAC, and the John Gray High School today out of an abundance of caution with regard to the smoke generated by the landfill fire. We will continue to monitor the situation and provide additional updates as necessary.
Cayman International School is closed today along with Cornerstone School, the transitional unit at Georgetown Primary, as well as Stepping Stones, Little Stars. These closures have the potential to cause some grief for parents. That's why the Civil Service is operating with a relaxed attendance policy today. If you're being affected by the school closures, you're encouraged to contact your manager and let them know that you won't be in today because your child needs to stay home. All civil servants are encouraged to monitor updates issued by Government Information Services. You can do that on their Facebook page or by listening to Radio Cayman. In addition, the Elections Office says it'll be closed today due to the high level of smoke that the wind is carrying from the landfill fires. Road closures remain in effect today.
The Esley Tibbetts Highway is still closed and will remain so until fire reassesses at noon today.
That's Director of Hazard Management Danielle Coleman. The Royal Cayman Islands Police Service is urging motorists traveling from the direction of West Bay to divert along West Bay Road at your earliest convenience during your travels. Motorists traveling from Georgetown are also to travel along West Bay Road as far as possible in order to arrive at their destinations. If you don't need to be going to and from West Bay, you're being asked not to do so until absolutely necessary in order to alleviate some of the traffic flow hindrances that this road closure is causing. An update on the current situation is expected within the hour, but earlier this morning, HCMI's Danielle Coleman told Radio Cayman that fire crews spent the night dealing with what government is describing as a dynamic fire.
What we're advising the public to do is follow the website closely, the hazard management website closely, as well as our social media pages. The residents are also advised to close doors and windows and monitor the AC units. And anyone experiencing respiratory issues should contact A&E.
The John Gray High School shelter, which opened on Sunday evening, has been closed, but the Red Cross building on Holda Avenue is still accepting evacuees. After a surface fire broke out Saturday and was quickly dealt with, strong winds prompted a fresh breakout Sunday afternoon around 5:30 p.m. The landfill and surrounding area was then engulfed in large black plumes of smoke, and fire crews have spent the night trying to contain the blaze. Home Affairs Minister the Honourable Tara Rivers.
On behalf of the government and the country, I would like to convey our deepest gratitude to Chief Walker and his team for their tireless efforts and commitment.
Again, an update is expected on the situation at the landfill within the hour. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Carsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with David Harper. There have been steep falls on the markets, with shares and oil prices plunging. The development follows the Saudi decision to increase oil production. Investors have also reacted negatively to fears of the coronavirus causing an economic downturn. Experts say the demand for oil could now fall for the first time since the end of the financial crisis more than 10 years ago. Riots have broken out in Italian jails against restrictions to combat the spread of coronavirus. Italian media say at least 6 people have died in Modena prison in the north. Much of Italy's industrial heartland is in lockdown because of the epidemic. Strict border controls are in place in Japan to prevent the spread of the virus. Arrivals from China and South Korea will be asked to go into quarantine for 2 weeks, and 3 million visas have been cancelled. The Sudanese Prime Minister says the attempt on his life won't derail reforms in the country. Local reports say the motorcade Abdullah Hamdouk was travelling in was targeted with explosives and automatic weapons. Nobody was injured. The two contenders for the Afghan presidency have taken oaths of office as the dispute over the election continues. The ceremonies were delayed to allow times for talks with the US Special Envoy, who'd been hoping to reach a deal between Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah Abdullah. That's the latest BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by Value Med Pharmacy, with 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and an Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit Value Med, more than just a pharmacy. Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Boddentown. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
For the health of it, Radio Cayman's premier health show is brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy, the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association, Holy Cross Hospital,
Cayman Fertility Center,
and EatingClean.com.
This is For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
The Weather Report is proudly sponsored by Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Super Stitch. We are known for our amazing fabrics, top quality tailoring and dressmaking. But did you know that we also carry trimmings, glitter, sequins, acrylic paints for fabrics and craft, floral wire, glues, markers, foam balls, and assorted ribbons? Yes, we do. You have a do-it-yourself project? Just pop into Super Stitch and see what we have in store for you. There is a craft item for your every need.
My favorite, the beads, glass ones, flat, and even those shell ones.
Super Stitch, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road, still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Pleasant good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 78. Relative humidity is 85%. Barometric pressure 30.14 inches and rising. The wind is northeast at 16 knots. Overnight low temperature was 73. Synopsis indicates strong northeasterly winds and rough seas will continue across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours as a high-pressure system over the eastern United States moves into the western Atlantic Ocean. Radar images show isolated showers in and around the Cayman area moving towards the west. Now the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy to cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers, and temperatures will be in the low 80s. Your winds will be east to northeast at 20 to 25 knots, and seas will be rough with wave heights of 7 to 9 feet. Small craft warning remains in effect for today and tonight as well. And the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy to cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers, and temperatures dipping to the low 70s tonight. Your winds will be east to northeast at 20 to 25 knots, and seas will be rough with wave heights of 7 to 9 feet. Today's high tide will occur this morning at 9:19, low tide this afternoon at 3:39, and a high tide again tonight at 9:45. The sun will set this evening at 6:32 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6:38. And the outlook is calling for fresh northeasterly winds and moderate to rough seas from tomorrow afternoon to Wednesday morning, with a small craft advisory being in place during the period. That's the very latest on your weather report.
Superstitch Sewing and Fabric Center was the proud sponsor of the Weather Report, your one-stop shop for all of your household items, craft items, jewelry, beads, and decorations, and much more. Call Superstitch at 949-2833 or email customer care at superstitch.com.ky.
New stock has just arrived at Superstitch. Now don't take my word for it, drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Superstitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Superstitch, 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Good morning once again. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. Traffic is busy on most roads, especially on the West Bay Road if you're heading to Georgetown coming from West Bay, especially in the vicinity of the Ritz-Carlton. Expect a lot of delays as you're headed down to Georgetown. Traffic is busy on the West Bay Road. Busy traffic on Crew Road. Also on the Linford Pearson Highway, heavy traffic. Light traffic on Owen Roberts Drive and looking towards Georgetown, downtown Georgetown on Edward Street. Traffic is steady. And steady traffic on Godfrey Nixon Way. And coming from the West Bay 4-way stop, traffic looking moderately. And just to remind you, the Esterly Tibbetts Highway is closed between the Butterfield Roundabout and Cost-U Less. And police are reminding that the Esterly Tibbetts Highway, of course, is closed due to the fire incident that is taking place. All motorists traveling from the direction of West Bay are being asked to divert to West Bay Road at your earliest convenience during your travels, and motorists traveling from Georgetown are also to travel along West Bay Road as far as possible in order to arrive at your destinations. All motorists are being asked also who do not need to travel to and from West Bay. You've been asked to refrain from doing so until absolutely necessary in order to alleviate some of the traffic flow hindrances that this road closure will cause during the morning commute. The RCIPS thanks you for continued cooperation and will be re-evaluating the Esterly Tibbetts Highway closure at noon today.
You know what goes perfect with tuna? Bacon. That's why Subway's adding bacon to our delicious tuna sandwich. It's the Tuna BLT. At just 540 calories for a 6-inch, you'll love this mouth-watering combination of flavors. Subway's tasty tuna sandwich is simply sumptuous on its own, but add bacon and it's out of this world delicious. After all, bacon and tuna are perfect together. Stop by any of Subway's 7 locations today and get the Tuna BLT. Subway. Eat fresh.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
And some public service announcement about school closure. St. George's Anglican School is closed. Also closed today, Cayman International School and John Gray. And SIFEC is also closed. And other school closures on Grand Cayman include Cornerstone School, the transitional unit at the Georgetown Primary, as well as Stepping Stones, Little Stars, and the Early Intervention Program at SIFEC. Department of Education Services will continue to monitor the situation.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
Puritan Cleaners, serving the Cayman Islands for over 60 years. Now offering 12% off ladies and gents wearing apparel, $20 and up prepaid, or 10% off pickup within 7 days. All household items standard 10% off prepaid. This offer good at all our stores until further notice. Savannah Countryside, Elgin Avenue, Georgetown, Eastern Avenue, Georgetown, 949-7104. Drive through, rain or shine. A great special. You feel good when you look good.
And just to further remind you, the civil service will operate a relaxed attendance policy today, Monday, 9th of March, for parents whose children attend schools which have been closed today due to the landfill fire. The schools which have been reported thus far closed today include the Cayman International School, Georgetown Primary School, John Gray School, and SIFEC. Also, other school closures include Cayman International School, Cayman Islands Further Education Center, SIFEC, Cornerstone School, Early Intervention Program at SIFEC, Georgetown Primary, John Gray High School, Little Stars, Stepping Stones, Transitional Unit at the Georgetown Primary School. And just to further remind you, all civil servants are encouraged to monitor the updates issued by the Government Information Service, GIS.
Imagine if we all practice safe driving. Imagine if we all refused single-use plastic. Imagine if we all turned off lights when not in use. We can all do our part in making Cayman Islands safer, cleaner, and greener. Together, we can achieve. Visit gov.ky/safer, cleaner, greener to learn more.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Schools and education, quite topical this morning in the context of school closures and traffic on the roads of the Cayman Islands, but also in our discussion here on For the Record with the Senior Policy Advisor and Manager of Early Childhood Care and Education Unit in the Ministry of Education, Miss Carol Bennett. We're talking about early childhood education and the funding for it. The assistance program, Early Childhood Assistance Program, also known as ECAP, the acronyms ECAP, and funding. And we all know the adage, the truism that the children are our future. So this is an opportunity for you to ensure the future of the Cayman Islands. The government is doing their part in terms of providing funding for that. And as you've heard earlier from Ms. Bennett, the uptake for the program has been extremely robust. The minister has made a decision that there will be no deadlines.
No deadline.
So as a result of that, even funding for the
2019 is still available.
Right. As well. So let's talk a little bit more about financial information and documentation that a person needs to submit for proof of income, say. And again, I would also like you to reiterate the point that information that is provided to your ministry remains confidential, strictly confidential.
Yes, I will continue to say that. Our early childhood unit is quite small in number. It's myself, Miss Renee Barnes, and Miss Darbra Bodden at this point. Okay. Within the ministry, it's only the three of us and an executive officer who will have access to any forms that come in. We are held by a code of confidentiality ourselves. The oversight committee that reviews forms to decide whether they're approved or denied according to the criteria have to sign a confidentiality agreement as well as part of their duties with the oversight committee. The persons who are selected for that oversight committee are handpicked, especially for things that such as they respect confidentiality. They're civic-minded. They understand the bigger picture. So persons who are part of that oversight committee are handpicked for exactly things like respecting confidentiality. So I just want to reassure everyone listening that the process is highly confidential, and parents, anyone should feel comfortable submitting their information, that it is in the hands of people who respect other people's confidentiality and want to keep things private.
Okay, and that information that is needs to be submitted includes?
So when parents are applying, we're asking them to submit a few documents. The first of those will be to show that your child is actually of age, and to help prove nationality is their birth certificate. So the child's birth certificate must be submitted. The proof that the child is Caymanian, which we talked about before. It could be their birth certificate and a parent's birth certificate, their acknowledgement letter from Immigration Department, or their status documentation.
Yes.
Parents' proof of income. So we're asking parents who are employed to submit pay slips that equals 2 months of their pay. So for people who are weekly, that would be 8 pay slips. For people who are biweekly, 4. And for people who are monthly, 1. And from that, we take we deduct pension and health, because parents don't have an option to spend that.
Right.
So we would hope that most pay slips would have the pension and health. They can also submit a job letter. If they submit a job letter in place of the pay slips, they have to ensure that the job letter tells us how much pension and health is removed as well, because most job letters don't say that. Right. If they are unemployed, they need to be registered with work to say that they're a job seeker extended, and that's for Caymanian parents. For non-Caymanian unemployed parents, they have to be registered with work as a job seeker. For parents or families who have decided that one parent is actually a stay-at-home parent, and that's their family's choice, that one parent will stay at home and take care of the children and run the household, they do not need to apply or to be registered with work, because that's not unemployed. That's family choice.
Yes.
So they need to provide us with a statement just to say it is our choice for one parent to remain at home. For parents who are self-employed, we're asking that they sign an affidavit in front of a JP saying that they're self-employed and giving us their average income. So we're hoping that that's honest, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the things that we need for the income part of it. If a child has a special educational need or a disability and is receiving services, we also need information on that, because the extenuating circumstances that I spoke about earlier, if a parent is paying money for a child to receive services related to their special needs and insurance isn't covering it or only covering a certain amount, we will then deduct that from the income that the parent makes. So that would add into their means testing. So that's why we would need that information. And a government-issued ID for parents. So that's passport, voter's ID, driver's license, whatever government-issued ID that parents have is what we would need for the parents. Okay?
Now, what if the early childhood center that an individual or a family want to send their child to charges more than is allocated by the government?
Right. So parents most of the early childhood centers do charge more than the $450. There are some which are still within that range, but the ones that charge more, parents would have to make the arrangements with that early childhood center to pay the difference. So if they've chosen an early childhood center that charges $600 a month and they qualify for $450 from us, they would then have to make up the extra $150 as agreed with the early childhood center. So we would send our portion, and then there would be a separate agreement between the parent and the early childhood center for the difference.
Okay.
We've had some parents who qualified for the $450, and they had provision at home to care for the child part-time, say a grandma or a neighbor's helper, something that the child was comfortable with and that was getting good stimulation with that person. And some people have actually used the $450 to put their children into higher cost centers part-time. So that would cover them, say, 3 mornings a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, at a center that may be $1,000 a month. And that $450 would cover part-time placement, and then the child would remain at home the other part-time. So things like that can actually happen as well. It's whatever the family thinks is best for the child. So if they get $275 or $450 from us and they only want their child to go part-time, that's fine with us as well.
Okay. Now, what about extracurricular activities that may be offered at a particular center? if there are additional costs for that,
That would
does the government cover that as well? Or
No, the $450 pays for attendance at the Early Childhood Center. So some centers offer private swimming lessons or extended day after school care, which the center might be $450, but say at 4 o'clock after school care kicks in and then the price is $100 a week, then that would be at the expense of the parents then, because we would only pay the $450. And it wouldn't include the extracurricular activities such as private swimming lessons or private dance lessons and such like that.
Okay. And are there any concerns that a child who is unable, whose family is unable to afford those extracurricular activities may feel a little bit separated from their cohorts?
Right. That's where we work with the early childhood centers because that has a lot to do with the emotional stability of the child as well. So with the early childhood centers we work with all the early childhood centers, but we've never had a situation where a child was removed from an activity because they couldn't pay and wasn't catered for in a caring way that the child felt then validated and felt like they were getting just as good as everyone else. A lot of the centers that we do pay the $450 to, those extracurricular activities that are paid for are usually perhaps after hours or as a special arrangement between parents. So, for example, if a swim school comes to pick children up at 11 o'clock in the day, that arrangement is usually between the parent and the swim school, but the early childhood center is the conduit then to get the children ready, to make sure that they're safely collected and showered or dressed when they come back. So usually it's an arrangement between the parent and the private center, the private business. But early childhood centers really, really do, as far as we're aware and as far as our experience has with them, cater to the emotional needs of the children so that they are catered to if something like that does happen.
Okay. Ms. Bennett, one final question before I offer you the opportunity for some closing comments as well. When I'm submitting an application, when I'm completing an application form, in terms of dependents, who are defined as dependents or who qualifies as a dependent?
So dependents, I think we use the immigration law to find dependents, but just speaking now, and that would be defined in the form as well, it's clear. So children under 18 are dependents. Children over 18 who are in tertiary education are dependents. An elderly person who depends on that family for their financial sustenance, their stability. Say I have a grandma living with me and I have to care for them, feed them, provide a place for them to live. They are defined as dependents. This includes children who may be overseas. So we have blended families. So a non-Caymanian might marry a Caymanian and have children in another country, but they're supporting them. So they would be defined as dependents as well. Non-working parent. So if one parent is working and one parent is staying at home or unemployed, that adult is then a dependent of the working parent. So it's quite broad because we know that money is expended on all these people in our context. So that working parent then would have all these people depending on them. In situations, we will ask for proof. So if we see someone claiming a 56-year-old as a dependent, and the oversight committee or the early childhood unit will say, can we have a medical certificate to say why this person is depending on you? And usually we get it back. Usually we've had a good run of applicants who are completely honest. So usually we get back letters from doctors saying they have a heart condition, they're unable to work, and this is long term. We also work with closely with NAU. So if NAU and DCFS has decided that someone is indigent, parents would not then need to have to go back and prove that to us. So if they are taking care of someone who's indigent under their roof and NAU confirms it with us, then parents don't have to go back through the hoops again because we have close relationship with NAU, DCFS, and work.
Okay, some closing comments and final. We have a caller. Let's grab the caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning, guys.
Good morning.
I have a question. I know a situation where man and woman divorced and had 2 kids, and the spouse, they divorced and she lost her permanent residency with the right to work, but they gave it to her permanent residency with the right to work until the last child is 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Now that child will be 18 years old next year. And apparently the lady, the mother, is applying for status. But then the immigration law does state something about if you've been here for 15 years or more, you're liable to get Cayman status. That's the question. That's something I need to be clarified, because if the person's supposed to lose their residency, then when the child gets 18, then how do they apply for status? I don't know. To me, if that's how it is, the law is actually contradicting itself. You know, is that how it works? I don't know.
Okay, that's a good question. I want to thank you for that. We'll try to answer that in another setting, because the person who's Ms. Bennett here is really not an immigration law specialist. I worked there for a time. Not sure what the current situation is, but certainly would be more than happy to answer that in another setting, for you as well, Ms.
Right.
Bennett.
Sorry we couldn't help with that, caller. But I wanted to let people know where to actually get the forms and how to apply. So we have the forms available on the Ministry of Education's website. So if you go on www.education.gov.ky and you click on the tab that says Education, and then you find the Early Childhood section, you will find both forms for 2019 and 2020 on the sidebar. You can also email us at ecap@gov.ky and request a form, and we'll send it via email. Or you can pick it up at the Government Administration Building, at the reception desk, at Department of Education Services, and at all the early childhood centers. They also have the forms. So there should be no shortage of finding the forms. We are happy to assist people in filling them out. If people would like to come to the government building, would like to meet us at a preschool, would like us to come out somewhere in the community to help them, we are more than happy to do
Very
that.
flexible.
Yes, we are. You can give us a call on 244-5735. That's Miss Renee Barnes. Or 244-5734. That's myself, Carol Bennett. And we're happy to help, and we're excited about getting the applications in for this year.
Ms. Bennett, thank you very much. And you're certainly doing a great service to the people of the Cayman Islands, and we want to thank you for that as well. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back immediately after this short commercial break.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, formerly known as Professional Pharmacy, would like to thank the Cayman communities for their loyal support these past 18 years. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care. Thorough background checks and follow-up consultations is only the beginning. Your safety is our concern. Our staff are respected healthcare professionals whose job requires careful and precise calculations. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, where we prepare to provide exceptional care. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we care about your health.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes, Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
We all know there's nothing more refreshing than the taste of an ice-cold Coca-Cola straight from the cooler.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling.
Whether it's celebrating a birthday, promotion, or just a great meal, make each moment a Coca-Cola moment.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling.
Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors. Make sure you ask for the unforgettable flavor of a classic Coca-Cola.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. 348255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It's my pleasure to have in the studio with me now the MLA and councillor, soon to be parliamentary secretary, Mr. Austin Harris, and also with us Mr. Tony Williams, and they're part of the transport. What is it called again?
The Committee on Vehicle Imports and Transportation.
Committee on right. And Mr. Harris, you're the chair of that committee.
I am, sir.
As well, and Mr. Tony Williams is a member. I'm going to say good morning to Mr. Williams first, because I believe this is his first time on For the Record. So good morning, sir. Welcome to For the Record.
Sir OC, it's a long time I haven't seen you, and it is the first time that I am here with you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you as well. And of course, Mr. Harris is no stranger to For the Record and Radio Cayman as well. Good morning, sir. And I believe that you want to give us an update as well as it relates to the landfill situation also, sir?
Absolutely. First of all, good morning to you, OC. Always a pleasure to be on your show. A very special good morning to all of those persons tuned in this morning. First and foremost, I want to thank God for sending down the rain this morning. Certainly, we are grateful for that.
Yes.
Could have used it last night, but always grateful for His perfect timing. Hopefully, that will assist firefighters and emergency responders who, as you know, have been battling another landfill blaze since about yesterday afternoon around 4 o'clock. First of all, I want to thank and recognize the fire officers, men and women, the emergency service crews, members of what has been the National Emergency Operations Center, headed by Hazard Management, who have taken lead on the communication side, as well as Government Information Services for keeping not only ourselves as MLAs informed, but also the wider community. Yes, this morning we're still feeling, the consequences of the landfill fire. In particular, residents of West Bay are getting a bit of a taste of what it feels like for the rest of us in the Eastern Districts every morning. There are a number of road closures still in effect. We have the Esterly Tibbetts Highway between Kaimana Bay and the Butterfield roundabout will remain closed as a precautionary measure. We have a number of schools also that are closed this morning. We have John Gray High School, Georgetown Primary, SciFec, as well as the Cayman Islands International School, all closed largely to keep our children and teachers away from the smell of smoke, not so much the threat of fire. Last night, the Honourable Minister of Education, Honourable Juliana O'Connor-Connolly, together with her team, offered up the John Gray High School gym as a place for shelter, to shelter those persons who were in fact displaced. We know of at least one apartment complex, Lakeside Villas. They were evacuated. Many, of course, took a voluntary evacuation, but when the fire started getting rather close to the Esterly Tibbetts Highway, there was an official evacuation. There were no evacuations on in central Georgetown, though persons certainly had the option, and they felt, particularly where the smoke was the thickest, they were encouraged to take advantage of the shelter. Likewise, we thank the Cayman Islands Red Cross, who also opened late yesterday evening to provide services for persons who were displaced as well. I don't have the specifics as they relate to how many persons took advantage of those shelters, but certainly fire crews continue to work the problem this morning and into the day. But again, thankful to Almighty for sending the rain, which I'm sure will assist efforts significantly.
Have is it the high winds that have really made the situation even more difficult and more acute?
I think so. Yesterday, when we saw initial videos of the fire, it was a wide fire. It was covering, distance, maybe 500 yards across, and that was being assisted by the winds, obviously fanning the flames, giving it oxygen. But on the other hand, we also are grateful for the winds because they kept the smoke relatively high in the air, so it wasn't as daunting and covering the lower landscape, the main landscape. Mind you, again, there were still the threats and concerns for some of the residents in the immediate vicinity, but certainly the winds both helped and undoubtedly, I'm sure, hurt firefighters in their efforts.
Okay, I want to thank you very much for that update, Mr. Harris. I think hearing it from a member of the government certainly reassures our listening and viewing audience in terms of the accuracy and the timeliness of the information that you have provided.
I just also want to encourage, I know people are starving in many cases for information, but the rumor mill, the assumptions, the presumptions that I've seen on some messages going out are unnecessary. They serve to frighten and confuse people. So I encourage folks, there is, as I mentioned, a National Emergency Operations Center established. Messages are being sent out on a regular basis. I understand that the next update or the most recent update should have been about 8 o'clock this morning. So I think that contains information that I just shared with you. But I just want to urge our country as citizens to remain calm. All that can be done is being done. Certainly, again, the fire services have rolled out all of the stops. Persons traveling from the eastern districts may notice some fire trucks parked along the spot stock. They're there in standby in the event that obviously additional services are in fact needed. Again, for civil servants in particular, because of the school closures, there are relaxed working hours today in the civil service. So those parents of students either at SciFec, John Gray, Cayman Islands International School, who have students that would have normally gone there but now are staying home, obviously they're urged to contact their supervisors and they will have relaxed hours. But above all, we urge the community to remain calm. The situation is being handled. And again, I thank you for that opportunity just to provide that brief update.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. So let's switch gears now and talk about the Vehicle Imports and Transportation Committee. We'll talk about its existence, its formation.
Yes, sir.
And the membership as well.
Indeed, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to recognize the membership. I have a fantastic committee of dedicated professionals, Mr. Tony Williams being one of them. We have Tony Williams. We have Mr. Stephen Gunby. We have Mr. Stephen Gunby, of course, from GT Auto. Mr. Adam Lawson, representing VAMP Motors. We have the Deputy Chief Officer of the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, Mr. Tristan Hides. We have the Senior Policy Advisor from that same ministry, Mr. Charles Brown. We have Mr. Dirk Banks, Director of Public Transportation Unit. And you have myself. We also have Mr. Floyd Webb from Jacko's Auto Garage as a member. So I think it's a comprehensive committee that takes into consideration largely the knowledgeable facets that make up our otherwise automobile and vehicles industry in the Cayman Islands. We have dealers. We have those particularly that represent the small garages that see a number of used vehicles. We have public transport on board, and certainly the overarching Ministry of Commerce that are looking into the full spectrum, both in terms of roads as well as public transportation. And we were formed as a result of a private member's motion last year in the Legislative Assembly, where we acknowledged, certainly myself in Prospect, the number one issue in my constituent in Prospect that I hear about almost daily is the issue of traffic. But undoubtedly that is felt east from Prospect and everywhere east of Prospect, Bordentown, East End, North Side. This morning, as I mentioned, West Bay are feeling a bit of that traffic that we feel every day. Their problems, though, were alleviated several years ago with the extension of the Esterly-Tibbetts Highway. Whilst significant work is going into the roadways, we see the extension or the expansion of the east-west bypass, that is a Prospect bypass heading into Hearst Road. That is expected to be completed hopefully by summer of this year. But in the meantime, we still have the challenge of the high number of vehicles. And our committee was formed by unanimous support of the Legislative Assembly, specifically to tackle those issues of traffic and see what we can come up with as a body that would otherwise be simple, easy to implement recommendations that would reduce the number of imports every year, but also work or lend itself to reducing the amount of morning traffic that a lot of our citizens have to deal with.
Okay, that's a good point for us to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll continue after this short commercial break with MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris and Mr. Tony Williams, who is a member of the Vehicle Imports and Transportation Committee. So please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
2020 means perfect vision. And if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Just two of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road. Insurance is complicated. Make your life easier and better protected with comprehensive financial solutions from FIS Insurance Brokers, with plans from life, health, property insurance, motor, public liability, and professional liability insurance. Whether you're protecting your family or your business, leave nothing to chance. Understand your options and protect yourself for the future. Speak to your FIS Insurance Broker agent today, located on Shedden Road by MoneyGram, or call 623-5616.
We all know there's nothing more refreshing than the taste of an ice-cold Coca-Cola straight from the cooler.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling.
Whether it's celebrating a birthday, promotion, or just a great meal, make each moment a Coca-Cola moment.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling.
Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors. Make sure you ask for the unforgettable flavor of a classic Coca-Cola.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
We're back on. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. Also with us, we have Mr. Tony Williams, who is a member of the Vehicle Imports and Transportation Committee. Before we go back to that topic, I just want to remind you that all roads heading in to Georgetown are really slow, all clogged up today. If you don't need to be on the roads of the Cayman Islands at this point in time, please refrain from doing so until later on in the day when the traffic has subsided somewhat. Also, for those of you who are civil servants, the civil service has informed that they will operate a relaxed attendance policy today for parents whose children attend schools which have been closed today due to the landfill fire. The schools which have been reported thus far to be closed include Cayman International School, Georgetown Primary School, John Gray High School, and SciFec. All civil servants are encouraged to monitor updates issued by the government information services. So if there is a relaxed policy in terms of attendance, if you're a civil servant working for the government of the Cayman Islands, and if you have children who attend Cayman International School, Georgetown Primary School, John Gray High School, and SciFec as well. So back to our topic now, the work of the Vehicle Imports and Transportation Committee that is chaired by MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, sir. Just before continuing, I failed to also recognize the Deputy Chair, who's also a very, very important member of our team, Councillor David White, who of course is with us this morning as well. My colleague to my right reminded me that there was one more person that we had left off of that list. Certainly wasn't on purpose, my brother.
Good morning, MLA and Councillor Mr. White. Welcome back to For the Record, sir.
Morning, OC. Morning, Tony. Morning, Councillor.
Morning, sir. Morning,
and
sir.
Good morning to the Cayman people.
Yes, sir. Indeed. To your question, OC, yes, the committee has come up with 10 recommendations to address the issue of traffic. Persons may recall in early February, the Cayman Compass published a series on traffic for the entire month where they did, I think, certainly a remarkable job in sharing the message of our committee and the recommendations that we have since made. With your permission, I would certainly go through those recommendations. I'll just go through the list in summary, and then if there are questions or otherwise, we can talk about them.
Yes.
The first recommendation is to impose import restrictions for Caymanians. These import restrictions will involve allowing Caymanians a maximum of 2 vehicles per year that they can import into the Cayman Islands. Persons importing more than 2 vehicles per year will find themselves falling in one of 2 categories: either a reseller and needing certain obligations, trade and business license, etc., place of business, or a collector. We understand persons are collectors and they have a number of vehicles. Certainly in the collector category, there will also be exemptions, particularly as it relates to the age of the vehicle, which are also included in our recommendation. We also recommend imposing ownership restrictions for short-term work permit holders. These are persons who are in the Cayman Islands on a short-term basis from 3 to 12 months. We've recommended that these persons be restricted from either importing or owning specifically an automobile. Leasing, co-oping, carpooling are some of the recommended options. Also encouraging them to own the 2-wheel version of transportation, motorcycles under 125 cc's. Likewise, we've also recommended import restrictions for long-term work permit holders. These are persons who are on work permits for 12 months or greater. Whilst they are or would be allowed to own a vehicle, it is our recommendation that they be restricted from importing those vehicles, but instead be required to make those purchases based on local supply, whether it is from the authorized dealers, whether it is from some of the used car dealers, or whether it is just individuals selling personal vehicles, as happens very often here in the Cayman Islands. The committee also seeks to impose age restrictions on vehicle imports. We did a study over a period from 2005 until present with the Department of Vehicle and Driver's Licensing, and we identified a number, I think, of useful statistics. There are vehicles on the road. The biggest category are vehicles 15 years and older. They account for about 30% of all of the vehicles on the road. The next category is actually vehicles that are up to 5 years old. So you see the broad divide in the second place. And in the third place is vehicles up to 10 years old with 19% of the overall total. We believe that starting a restriction on vehicles aged 10 years as a maximum age is a good starting point. One of the reasons for this, and certainly my colleagues can speak of it, once a vehicle passes the 10-year threshold, going on to the 12, 15-year threshold, that's where you start to experience breakdowns, malfunctions, wear and tear. Certainly if you haven't maintained the vehicle, those problems are going to get worse. Any longer than 15 years, I'm advised that getting parts for vehicles becomes a challenge. Yes. And in our experience, particularly here in the Cayman Islands, those vehicles usually will end up derelict on the side of the road, stripped for parts, and overall an unsightly appearance for all. As public transportation improves over a period of, say, 5 years, the committee has recommended a sliding scale with the ultimate goal of restricting vehicles no older than 6 years on our roadways. Now, before folks, get anxious and think, why are you going this far? These are examples that have been provided to us by other Caribbean islands.
And this would be on the roadways as opposed to importation?
This would actually be importation.
Okay.
So, in other words, what we're trying to achieve is having newer vehicles on the road, which translate into less breakdowns and less issues with garages not being able to find parts for vehicles, which then become, junk and end up in the landfill or end up, as Austin said, on the side of the road.
Okay. But if I own a vehicle and I continue to operate it, and it can go up to 15, 20 years, whatever, as long
as it's already on the island.
It's already here. Okay.
It's already here.
Good.
So you can have a 40-year-old vehicle bubbling along in perfect condition. It's all good.
Yes.
It's just that you will not be able to import a vehicle of that age any longer unless you are in the category of a collector.
Yes.
Got you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that, Tony. It's absolutely correct. Other recommendations include requiring an inspection certificate for all imported vehicles. And this is based on what we see as a significant trend of the high number of used vehicles being imported in the Cayman Islands, particularly vehicles coming out of Asia, Japan in particular. Certainly, again, speaking to my colleagues in the business, the attraction of these vehicles is their low price and what is, at least at face value, a well-maintained vehicles. But oftentimes there's a lot more going on in that vehicle than first meets the eye. We have had reports where odometers, for example, have been rolled back to make it an easy sell. Now, certainly the consumer may not be none the wiser, thinking they bought a car with 100,000 kilometers, but in reality they have 200,000, 250,000. So again, the wear and tear on that vehicle is much greater, and therefore the opportunities for breakdown significantly greater. There is also the concern, particularly vehicles coming out of Japan, of radiation. Now, we understand Japan has, an overabundance of vehicles. Some of these are irradiated vehicles, similar problems as we do, but they're seeking to pass it off on the Caribbean to unload their extra stock. But how safe are these vehicles? We understand, particularly since the nuclear meltdown in Asia, that there have been some changes, particularly in terms of international shipping and maritime rules that speak directly to radiation. So there may or may not be in certain ports of call radiation testing already taking place.
Okay.
But the notion behind the inspection certificate says that every car imported into the Cayman Islands must have an inspection certificate from its origin company provided in advance. Car shows up without the inspection certificate, it will be turned back around. And of course, we can also talk about what that inspection certificate will include. But the primary goal here is to ensure that the vehicles that are being imported are in fact roadworthy, meet the standards that Cayman has set for itself, and also reduce the chances of derelict cars and so on and so forth. In terms of traffic, there are a number of recommendations that the committee has come up with. The first, of course, was the introduction of staggered time or flex time, particularly for companies with 50 or more employees, financial services, government in particular, could very well be lead a pilot project in this regard to help to reduce the number of vehicles on the road at the same time. We acknowledge, though, that fine, you're a professional and you no longer have to get to work at 7:30, but you're on flex time. You get there at 8:30 or 9:30. If you have school-age children, that obviously negates the advantage you have because you still have to get your kids to school. That is why we also propose school buses for private schools, similar to the school buses that are done for public schools. We could, offer incentives to the schools themselves and duty rebates, or we could seek to extend the existing private bus service held by private companies and extending those services onto private schools. Another improvement is improved lane efficiencies. As I mentioned earlier on, the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, led by the Honourable Joey Hugh, has rolled out a massive road building campaign, and we will be seeing a number of roads built and expanded over the next few years, certainly in time for summer. But we have many multiple lanes already in use, and we thought that, well, if we simply change the direction during peak travel hours of the lanes in existence, in some cases we have 4-lane highways. So in the peak morning hours, for example, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., we can have 3 lanes heading into Georgetown, 1 lane heading out of Georgetown, and then reversing that in the evening peak time so we maximize the lane use. It will require a degree of engineering, some traffic lights and whatnot, but we believe anyone can be taught. I know you have to take a break, so I'll stick a pin.
Okay, we're going to take a break for headline news, folks. Please stay tuned. The conversation with Mr. Austin Harris, Mr. Tony Williams, and Mr. David White will continue after this break for headline news. So please stay tuned.
Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news. Access to information.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Road closures and school closures today as fire crews battle a blaze at the landfill. These include Cayman International School, the Further Education Center, Cornerstone School, Early Intervention Program at SciFec, Georgetown Primary, John Gray High School, Little Stars, Stepping Stones, the Transitional Unit at Georgetown Primary, and St. George's Preschool. The civil service is being allowed to operate on a relaxed attendance policy today for parents whose children are affected by these school closures. Also, the Esterly-Tibbetts Highway remains closed between the A.L. Thompson Roundabout and Kaimana Bay. The Red Cross shelter on Hilda Avenue is open for evacuees. In the meantime, a cruise ship is picking up COVID-19 test kits in Grand Cayman today. The Caribbean Princess has received a no-sail order from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and is heading back to U.S. waters from Costa Rica to test 2 crew members for COVID-19. This is according to a letter the cruise ship handed out to passengers Sunday night. The Miami Herald has reported that the Caribbean Princess will stop in Grand Cayman today to pick up test kits, and samples will be sent from here to the U.S. for testing. No one will be allowed to disembark in Grand Cayman. The ship will then return to Florida to await the test results. The Port Authority tells Radio Cayman this is a precautionary matter and will send out an update shortly. So make sure to keep it locked. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
For Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back. Welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning for this section, we have members of the Vehicle Imports and Transportation Committee. They include the chairperson of the committee, MLA and Councillor, Mr. Austin Harris, Deputy Chairperson of the Committee, MLA and Councillor, Mr. David White, and member, Mr. Tony Williams, who's the owner of a automotive center here in the Cayman Islands as well. So we're talking about the 10-point recommendations that have emerged from the committee as well. Mr. Harris, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. I was just again going down the list. Just 2 more recommendations after the improved lane efficiencies. It almost goes without saying, but any improvements to the traffic situation has to somewhat begin and arguably end with improved public transportation. We have identified certainly a centralized and/or improved bus service using perhaps larger buses for the fixed routes. These are the ones that run Georgetown to East End, Georgetown to Northside, Georgetown to West Bay. But then supplementing those primary fixed routes with smaller omnibuses, whether it be the smaller 15-seaters, maybe it's the taxi drivers who, don't get enough business at nighttime, they can supplement their income. These omnibuses will then collect passengers from the main terminals and shuttle them to the side roads that oftentimes persons have to stop and pick up the bus. I think under a properly efficient program, if operating the way we would like to see it, then these smaller omnibuses will be able to give door-to-door service. So we'll drop you off at your door, pick you up, take you to the bus stop, and then you go on continue your travel journey from there. It is an effort, and again, we're grateful to have the Director of Public Transport as our committee member. We're able to identify the challenges, but also the opportunities. But when we look at traffic as a whole, and also many of the recommendations put forward by the committee, particularly as it relates to restricting ownership, restricting imports, we acknowledge that we have to be able to give Joe Public something in exchange for these restrictions. And therefore, we wholeheartedly accept that improved public transportation is central to any plans moving forward in terms that would otherwise seek to improve traffic. Lastly, on our 10-point list of recommendations is carpooling. We believe, again, there are opportunities for persons to carpool, whether it be encouraging large stratas, residential neighborhoods, and even major employers, as I mentioned earlier, for participating in a carpooling program. Earlier, again this year, I think February, if not end of January, there was an article in the Compass. They did a survey where it said 85% of vehicles entering Georgetown in the morning have, on average, one or two persons in them. We see also, not just in Cayman, but the current trend, everybody has to have an SUV. So these are big vehicles that are intended to carry multiple persons, but instead it's the soccer moms with the one or the two children, and that's it. Certainly we have large enough roads. When we talk about our improved lane efficiencies, maybe there's an opportunity to introduce a high occupancy vehicle lane. Lanes that are exclusively used by public transport, buses, by carpooling, and those lanes will get priority and therefore, hopefully, lead to less times in traffic. But we believe carpooling will go a long way in reducing the number of cars that are on the roadways on any average day in the Cayman Islands. And of course, if we can remove the high number of vehicles, not only are we improving the overall stress levels, but we're improving the environment by reducing the emissions. And that too is part of the national energy policy and its aspirations. So those are, in a nutshell, OC, the 10-point recommendations that have been emanating from this committee. We've been meeting since October of last year. This is what we have come up with. And now, officially, we've begun what is our public consultation, engaging the public to say, listen, what do you think of these recommendations? Are there ways these recommendations can be improved? What are the cracks that you see in these recommendations that perhaps we haven't recognized? How can they be improved? But the goal will be, from these discussions, they will lead us to what will form our final recommendations that we can make to the government, hopefully certainly by May of this year.
Okay. And how will this engagement with the public take place?
It begins first directly. We will be attending talk shows, yourself being the first one. This coming Friday, we hope to be on the Rooster program in the morning. We have a dedicated email address, traffic@gov.ky. So persons, again, if they're at work and they're listening to the show, but they don't have the time to share some opinions or they want to think about it, traffic@gov.ky. Simply just share your thoughts, send us an email. That email will go directly to the committee, and of course we'll form it part of our ongoing discussions. Lastly, we will be conducting a survey, which we hope to have completed by the end of this week, if not early next week, which will also be disseminated, particularly over social media, but online. We are formulating the questions now. We don't want to make it too long that it's too arduous for persons, but we have to also seek to ask the pertinent questions that we think the information derived from it will be useful not only to this committee, but particularly for the NRA, the ministry, and otherwise, who are designing roads for the future.
Okay, Mr. Deputy Chair, and anything that you want to add? And I think you want to also speak to the landfill fire as well.
Yes. Good morning again. And I would just like to start off by thanking the chairman for asking me to be his deputy chairman. And every time we have committee meetings, I'm there and I'm learning a whole lot that I didn't know before. So I'm very grateful for the chairman for allowing me. And we have some really experienced people who deal with the, with the automobile industry, like who we have here today, Tony, and we have Stephen Gunby, we have Adam Lawson, and then also two very experienced people we have is Tristan from the government, from the ministry, and Charles Brown. So we had a very, very good presentation the other day where we had Orrin Ashby and Jonathan Allen came in, but they brought in a gentleman from, he's does a lot of transportation things in Miami, that area. His name was Diego Capeluto, and that was a very, very interesting presentation they did to us. And as the chairman says, with all that we're learning from the presentation and the public consultation and so on, when we finalize all the recommendations, hopefully, as the chairman says, we will be able to put our recommendations to the LA, to the House in May, and get back feedback from the public. But I would also like to, getting back to a very serious matter with the landfill fire. I know that you all started off when I wasn't here with thanking so many people for what they're doing from yesterday and throughout the night, but I think we missed the Department of Environmental Health and their director, Mr. Richard Sims. And one thing I would like to especially say is that I was truly impressed, because we have a little chat that goes on, and to see that the premier at 1 o'clock and later, he was actually at the landfill with the fire chief, Mr. Paul Walker, and the director of the Department of Environmental Health, Mr. Richard Sims. He was actually there overseeing what was going on, and I mean, that shows his concern for the people and for Cayman. So I would just like to thank the premier and thank everybody who has worked so tirelessly throughout Sunday and last night.
Okay, thank you very much for that. One of our listeners has written in and said, in regards to the composition of the committee, why is there no applied scientific persons on the committee, such as transportation engineers?
Certainly, it's a great question. The largest question is availability. But we believe we have filled that gap with the participation of the Deputy Chief Officer and Senior Policy Advisor for the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure. This is the ministry that has oversight of the NRA. This is the ministry that has oversight over the road building and any road projects and infrastructure projects. And as a result of that, we have access. Whilst their overall ministry aren't members, but we have full access to that ministry and the resources that come with it. So we think we have met that need by the attendance of the specific members, particularly the Deputy Chief Officer.
Okay. What I'd like to do, with your permission, Mr. Harris, is to the 10 points of recommendation that were made, the 10 recommendations, to dig a little deeper, drill down a little deeper into those. Because we many of these recommendations, or some of these recommendations, I should say, we've heard people air them, calling in on the talk shows, for instance. And, one example would be that there seems to be a public appetite to have public transportation in the Cayman Islands.
Yes.
And what is interesting to know, and I'm glad that you're going to have a survey monkey going out and questionnaire in relation to it, is while there seems to be a public appetite to have public transportation, we need to know whether or not there's a public appetite to use public transportation, because I think they're two different things, altogether. Absolutely. But we can discuss those as well. But we'll take a commercial break. When we return, we'll start off with the first recommendation and go in detail through all of them as well. Okay, folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Since March 2004, West Bay Pharmacy has kept their doors open to the local communities, even before, during, and after Hurricane Ivan. At West Bay Pharmacy, our staff provides so much more than pharmaceutical excellence. From the moment you walk through our doors to completing your cash out, our staff will have put your healthcare concerns at ease. We would like to take this moment to thank our loyal friends and customers. To us at West Bay Pharmacy, our patients are our primary concern. We provide thorough background checks and precise calculations to ensure your medical safety. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
We all know there's nothing more refreshing than the taste of an ice-cold Coca-Cola straight from the cooler.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling.
Whether we're celebrating a birthday, promotion, or just a great meal, make each moment a Coca-Cola moment.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling.
Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors. Make sure you ask for the unforgettable flavor of a classic Coca-Cola.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
Headlines.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars. Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news.
Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're having a discussion with some of the members of the Vehicle Imports and Transportation Committee. They include MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris, who's the chairperson, Deputy Chairperson, MLA and Councillor Mr. David White, and the owner of an automobile company. Last time I heard, it was still Tuna's Toys, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mr. Anthony Williams, they're here with us this morning. One of our listeners has written in and said a few questions, or one question and an observation as well. Are there any plans to have buses on a map tracker and having a yearly pass? Therefore, people can see when the buses will arrive at the top of the road. It would also make them more accountable.
Absolutely. We fully agree with that listener this morning, and certainly as the Deputy Chair, Councillor White, mentioned, as a committee, we've had the pleasure of receiving a number of presentations from stakeholders, whether they be engineers or, in the case of last week, a service provider that introduces technology into the public transportation system. And one of the clients this company services is the state of Florida and the city of Miami. And certainly they have used technology in the form similar to the CI Go app, which was recently created to provide taxi fares. But it falls short of identifying the location of those taxis. Again, we can create an app. And again, you attach a GPS on the public buses themselves, and we can track where these buses are. So you go to a bus stop, you have a free app in your hand on your smartphone. You can see when the next bus is scheduled to come. We can expand it to, say, the next 5 buses. So if 5 minutes is the next bus is too soon for you, the next one will be around in 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes. I think that would certainly go a long way to improve transportation for the public and to your point and the listener's point, encourage users of the public transportation system. One of the recommendations also includes expanding that bus service to the private schools. I understand the reluctance of private schools and their parents in busing their children because of the sometimes calamity that occurs on the buses, the fights or the otherwise. Yes. Again, this very same technology can use webcam. That has the video feed, live video feeds of the bus driver and the passenger. The live information also contains information about the speed in which the bus is traveling, any sudden stops or whatnot, all of that to manage the efficiency of the public transportation system. I think, certainly from the committee standpoint, we thought that technology was very exciting. and certainly would be something that we would recommend the government embrace going forward, because as much information as you can generate, much data that you can generate from any particular service will only lend itself to improving the efficiency of that service. You know, you asked the question earlier on about what sort of statistics do we know in terms of usage of our public transportation. Again, compliments of the member, Dirk Banks, the Director of Public Transport Unit. We determined that the Public Transportation Unit operates 9 bus routes per day, running 105 buses with an average of 1,600 passengers per day. So these are the people who are using the bus service on a daily basis here in the Cayman Islands. If we expand those numbers, 1,600 passengers per day equals 9,500 passengers on a 6-day week, 38,000 passengers per month, and just over 460,000 passengers on an annual basis. That number suggests people are using the service. The question we have to ask ourselves, are the points in which the bus is currently running now the most efficient and those that are in the highest demand? Is there room for improvement to increase the size of buses and therefore reducing the number of trips that are made? Yes. And again, the convenience factor, we accept that persons usually have to walk to a bus stop to catch a bus. How can we provide them the added convenience that they get a ride to that bus stop and then on to their primary destination?
Okay. So, starting, can we go back to recommendation?
Yes.
1, import restrictions for Caymanians.
Yes. Again, you know, this is not about the number of vehicles you can own, which oftentimes was confused on this point. You can own as many vehicles as you like. We accept that you can only drive one at a time. But we have to recognize that the number of vehicles that are being imported into this country have reached, the stratosphere. We just some statistics. 2017, 4,783 vehicles were imported at an average rate of 398 vehicles per month. On the opposite side, we are disposing of just under 30 vehicles per month into the landfill.
Less than 10% of what is brought in.
Exactly. And when we look at the number for 2018, 4,783 vehicles imported on an annual basis, that is 60% more vehicles that we were importing 4 years ago in 2014. So we like the convenience of having a vehicle, but there is a consequence. The more vehicles on the island on our other relatively small roads and certainly small overall transportation miles are going to lead to traffic congestion. So again, we came up with what we thought was reasonable. The average person of driving age can import no more than 2 vehicles per year for themselves. If you're importing more than 2 vehicles per year, we have to believe that those vehicles aren't for personal use, but they are for resale. We can support this theory specifically with the growth in the number of car sales. For example, in 2011, 9 years ago, new vehicles accounted for most of the overall imports in the Cayman Islands by 62% versus 28% of used vehicles. Now, 2019, that statistic has completely did a 180. The trend presently shows that we are importing up to 71% used vehicles as compared to 29% of new vehicles into the Cayman Islands. So again, whether it be an affordability factor or otherwise, but more cars are coming into this country, used cars in particular. Whilst we can measure, when I say we, the government, the trade and business, the Department of Commerce and Investment, they can monitor the authorized dealers because they have specific requirements. They have a trade and business license. They have a location. In many cases, they offer a warranty. If not, they all offer a warranty. So that deals with the issue of maintenance and repairs. But we have no monitoring whatsoever of the individuals who can sell a vehicle or operate a business, Caymanians I'm talking about, without a license. So again, if you are importing more than 2 vehicles per year and you're not a collector, then you will be placed, or our recommendation is that you'll be placed as a reseller so that we can, at the very least, keep track of these numbers and, when necessary, perhaps impose restrictions that the government has some authority.
Precisely. We have a caller, and want you to think about the whole question of affordability,
Yes.
as well, and whether or not that has been addressed by the committee, or whether or not you're empowered to address the whole question of affordability as well, because that seems to be the driver behind the increase in the number of used cars being imported, and also from whence they come as well. Let's go to the caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
And good morning to your panel.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, Mr. Austin, you just mentioned about the public buses, could probably go into the schools and drop off the kids because, or fight and so forth on the regular school buses. And I don't want you to answer me as you kind of got two questions. About taking the kids on the public bus to the school. You'll be surprised to know what environment those kids are in, that is in on those public buses when they come to them guys doing their phone with a lot of cursing on it, a lot of naked people on the phone, and the driver sometimes has his video camera on with all this talking and a lot of nasty, offensive words coming out of the program that they do have on their screen in their buses. And another question. If we do get a proper bus service to this island, these public buses that we have here now, are they going to be part of that system? I leave those two questions with you and I'll hang up and then probably call back if I'm not pleased. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller.
I think some excellent comments and the question. Very clearly there are challenges in the public bus system, whether they're catering to the public schools or otherwise. I know so much so that we have both drivers and bus wardens to maintain the calm and the peace or otherwise. I'm under no illusions that that's going to go away overnight. But again, when just certainly my opinion, and my colleagues can speak for themselves and their viewpoint. But when we saw our presentation last week, just the reality of knowing that there's a video camera operating on that camera keeps both the bus driver and the passengers in check. When we talk about some of the incidents of bad behavior, fights or otherwise, one of the things that's usually lacking in those situations is evidence. So that we know who are the responsible parties and obviously how to address it. And I think that, with more evidence, we can address these situations, and more arrests, if you will, punishment or fines or otherwise, will in and of itself bring about a deterrent. So that's the first thing. To the second question, well, I would like to think that the existing bus service would form part of any future bus service going forward. Certainly, if we choose to, whether it be privatizing this route, as it presently is occupied, it is very much a private business. The individual owners run their buses. They decide the routes they want to run, how long they want to run, how long they want to work, etc. I think there's a lot of room for fine-tuning that, for putting in place standards and policies. But yes, I would imagine the existing buses could be used to service those needs. But likewise, when we talk about, do we want bigger buses? What are the safety factors that we want to include in these buses, seatbelts, etc.? If those buses can't be retrofitted with these safety features, then perhaps they may need to be replaced. I think these are questions that we are going to discover as we go forward. But certainly, I also don't believe in reinventing the wheel if you don't need it. And we have buses. We have a number of school buses. I don't know how many seats the school buses are in general. About 50 seats. Those are useful passenger seats that I would certainly like to see us use more efficiently rather than jettisoning them and adding more for the landfill.
Okay.
I hope I've answered the question.
One of our listeners has written it and said, curious that the majority of the committee members make their living importing and increasing the number of vehicles in Cayman. What do you say? What say you, Mr. Harris?
Well, again, first of all, we have those persons who are in the business of selling vehicles because they're the expertise.
Yes.
they earn a living from it. They've been doing it for a number of years. So certainly, me, Councillor and I, we came into this recognizing that there is a problem in traffic and taking the opportunity to try to do something about it and bringing the right expertise to the table. Certainly, persons like Tony, persons like Stephen Gunby, persons like Adam Lawson, they bring a wealth of knowledge to the table that guide us to make reasonable and solid recommendations that aren't over the top. To the other question, or the other statement, that they increase the number of cars on the island. Well, again, statistics suggest otherwise. It isn't the importers who are adding to the traffic congestion. Again, as I pointed out, 2019, 71% of all of the vehicles imported into the Cayman Islands were being imported by individuals, leaving the official authorized dealers with only 29%.
Pretty close to three-quarters.
Exactly. So we are our own problem, frankly. We have some recent statistics that I received from the Department of Vehicle and Licensing that frankly kind of frightened me a little bit. But we took a look at new vehicle registrations from November 2019 to January 2020. That's 4 months. In that 4-month period, 1,794 new registrations were added to the official vehicle register, taking the total number of registered vehicles in the Cayman Islands to 44,960, I believe that number is.
You're correct.
The highest number of registrations, 60% or 1,081 vehicles, was Georgetown. The second highest, or 21%, with 368 new registrations, are the Eastern Districts. So the same folks that are challenged with the traffic and are, really complaining, whether it be social media or otherwise, are the ones bringing in vehicles, registering new vehicles. And of course, in third place, we have West Bay with 333 registrations. So again, it's not the authorized dealers that are contributing to this dearth of vehicles in the Cayman Islands. We are bringing them in by choice or otherwise. And whilst we don't want to remove the convenience of our citizens, we have to recognize if you hate sitting in traffic, then we need to look at, what we're doing in terms of bringing in more vehicles that not only add to the environmental hazards, but the stresses that go with sitting in traffic.
Okay, well, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we will talk about one of the categories that we believe do contribute to the increase in the number of cars imported into the Cayman Islands, and that would be those persons who are on short-term work permits as well. So, folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. I'm told we have about 3 callers on hold as well, and we will certainly accommodate your calls also.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on ensuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
2020 means perfect vision, and if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Just 2 of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road.
Hi, I am Dr. Lee, Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health. The Ministry and the Department of Public Health, along with our partners, are working hard to help protect residents from the novel coronavirus. Did you know the best way to help prevent infection is to avoid being exposed? So please, wash your hands frequently with soap and water, or use an alcohol-based sanitizer. Cover your noses and mouths when coughing or sneezing. And as best as possible, keep a good distance or avoid contact with anyone with symptoms of a respiratory infection. To read more about the public health's updates, please visit hsa.ky.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're talking with members of the Vehicle Imports and Transportation Committee. We have 4 callers. I'm going to ask each caller to please be mindful of the fact that someone is waiting behind you. We want you to try to limit the amount of time that you take to get your question or comments across as well. So we will take the first caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello?
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Osti. How are you today?
I'm fine. Go right ahead, sir.
Good morning to all the panel there, Boston and Mr. Wright and Mr. Tony.
Good morning to you, my friend. Thank you for your call.
Good morning. Yeah, I think we need a good, reliable public transportation system. The thing is that what we have now, everybody got the individual buses. Half of them are different colors. You go on there's not a uniform. I've ridden those buses, and I sometimes see people sitting on the little jump seat in front of, right behind and they squeeze in as many people as they can get in there, which is dangerous. And I think these are things we have to look at. If you're going to have public transportation buses, you've got to have the drivers with uniforms. The buses have to be painted the same color. So you'll know it's a public bus. You see, these are things that I said there's no order within the system. And people can do, and people, if they have a good day, I've seen them do it. They leave at 12 o'clock and they're going home and whatever they do. And those people then, you see people standing along the road that would normally be picked up by some of those buses, and they get into work late. And I'm sure those people are docked because they didn't get there in time. And one suggestion I'm going to make to you, Mr. Austin, is this, that you should work with the hotels, because most of the people that you see taking these buses are working in hotels and places like that. And because I remember when I was a kid and I had my first job in the old Garden Beach Hotel, they had a bus that picked up people from West Bay or from Georgetown, and they bring them there so that they're on time, and these people could then be there on time and didn't have to worry about, waiting for a bus.
So, caller, your point is then dedicated public transportation for tourist industry, hotels and stuff like that. Thank you very much. Let's take the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hi, good morning. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, we are. Go right ahead.
I just wanted to expand a little on what the gentleman just said in terms of the organization of this proposed system. I would say that probably the best way to do it is a proper public-private partnership where essentially all these independent contractors now that own their own taxis and buses and whatnot are folded into a single company in which they have part ownership.
Mm-hmm. A cooperative, something like a cooperative, yeah? Hmm?
Yeah, so they have proper participation. The company and the fees that it collects buys and maintains the buses. You can have the uniforms and so on that the gentleman just described. The government side of it will be responsible for maintaining bus lanes, maybe bus shelters, and so on and so forth, since they have control of the road. And then the company just pays for the vehicles and trains the drivers and collects the fees and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I think that's a better way to do it. Mm-hmm. And in terms of large buses like those 40, 50, 60-seater buses, certainly do the express routes to the outer districts. And then in the inner district, drop these omnibuses because, as people have pointed out repeatedly, they're unsafe and disgraceful looking, honestly. Use something smaller, not smaller, but more appropriate, like something similar to like airport shuttle buses that are really easy to get on and off of for like elderly people and disabled folks and so forth. Those would be much better medium range and short range buses working inside the district.
Thank you very much, caller. Very good points.
Yes.
Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. No callers. Okay, I'll read one here very quickly as well. It says, good morning. Number one, will government commit to making every bus handicap accessible in their new plans? That's a question. Two, all other countries have signs on all their public buses reserving the front seat for the elderly and disabled, while asking able-bodied passengers who sit in these front seats to give up their seat if any elderly or disabled passenger boards. Will government ensure that the elderly and disabled are provided equal access in public transport? Normally, this vulnerable population will not speak up to the driver or any passenger. So those are some points there. I think we have a few callers that have called in. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning to all the guests.
Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
In relation to traffic issues and what was stated earlier on who's actually bringing in most of the vehicles.
Yes.
And the fact that we know how a panel put together to review this and try to come up with some solutions. I don't understand how who's bringing them in is going to make a difference on how much is actually going to come in. I say that in relation to if one cannot bring in their own vehicle, but dealers can bring in as many vehicles as they like, then the problem will still become the same. It'll just become a matter of who's bringing the vehicles to the island and not having, in my opinion, any adverse effect on the actual numbers of vehicles coming.
But caller, do you recognize that the limitation in terms of who will be able to bring in vehicles that would not extend to Caymanians? I don't know if you heard the first part of the discussion and the point that there will be an import restriction for Caymanians, but it won't be a blanket restriction that Caymanians won't be able to bring in vehicles at all.
No, I understand that, Mr. Khan, but what I'm not understanding is that, you know, when we talk about only certain individuals or companies, registered individuals, let's say, that are able to bring in these vehicles, we're talking about alleviating the traffic problem. And essentially what we're saying is we got too many vehicles on the road. We got the ability of everyone to bring a vehicle is adding to the congestion.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Okay.
Yeah. But my point is, when that is limited to a number of people, because it will be, if that's the recommendation of the committee, then those individuals then are competitors. They're going to meet demand. If demand requires that they bring in 5,000 vehicles a year instead of bringing in 2,000 or 1,000, whatever they were bringing in to throw a number out there, then they're going to do that. You agree with that?
Yes.
So where does, in doing that, where does that limit the amount of vehicles coming to the island? It simply only means you have to purchase your vehicle on the island as opposed to being able to bring it in yourself for some people. You understand?
Got you.
No, absolutely.
Thank you very much, caller, for that.
I just want to address that very quickly. Again, by categorizing persons as a reseller and putting certain requirements on them, trade and business license. You got to have a place to do business. It can't be a residential area, but it has to be commercial. Whether or not the rules require these resellers to offer a warranty as the existing dealers do. Those requirements, just at face value, will reduce the number of persons who are importing vehicles at the present state. But also, by categorizing them allows the government or the respective authorities to monitor. As they do the authorized dealers, they will be able to monitor those resellers as individuals. And now I'm no big fan of moratoriums of any kind, but they are a measure of control in the event people get a little, they go a little import crazy. So by categorizing a reseller, by having the requirement of a trade and business license, places in my mind a degree of authority on the government agency that is monitoring that.
So you could possibly restrict the number of vehicles that any dealership could bring in.
At any point in time. You can't do that now because 75% of those who are importing the vehicles are individuals that we have no idea who they are.
It's all about the accountability. How do you manage what you're bringing in? That really is the question. How are you able to, as Austin said, monitor what's taking place and then make the adjustments necessary? Right now, there is no way of figuring out what's going on. You just have the statistics, but are unable to monitor and manage That's the real problem.
Okay, we have 3 callers. We're going to try to squeeze 1 caller in before we take the commercial break, and then we'll take the other callers afterwards. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, O.C.
Good morning, sir.
And to your guests there, Mr. Harris and Tony and David.
Good morning to you, my friend. Thank you for your call.
Morning.
I want to share with you what happened to me on Friday. I went to the licensing department to license my vehicle. This is 3 times in a row. And I keep asking the people there, when can I get my new plates, right? They keep telling me that, some excuse, they're not finished yet, they're not ready yet. So I just keep going back, and every time I go to relicense my vehicle, like I said, I relicensed 3 times so far already. I keep going back to relicense. I ask them if the plates are ready. So I'm getting a little bit fed up at this point because I got a vehicle that the plates are so bad I can't even hardly drive the vehicle because police stopped me 3 times already because if you're close up on it, you can see it. But if you're away from it, you can't tell what is on that plate. Right. So I asked if I could speak to the supervisor. So the guy was right next to the room where the supervisor was. So when he told me that the plates was not ready, I said to him, can I speak to the supervisor, please? So he kind of pushed his chair back and he spoke to the supervisor that someone requested to speak to her. Find out what he wants. Well, I said, I'd like to speak to the supervisor. Well, she wants to know what it's all about. I said, it's about my license plate. So he speak to her again, and she come back and said, what about your license plate? So finally, after going through all of this, no respect for nobody, you would have thought that she could have come right out. She 2 steps out of her seat would have put her right in front of me and the gentleman that was dealing with me. And finally, she came out, and I asked her, I said, it's totally out of this is ridiculous. Will people get their new license plates? Well, she can't promise. We only got 1 person working, and, if you want new plates that you don't want to drive with the old plates on your car, you can go and buy a new set. I said, well, you know what? That is really nice coming from a supervisor. I said, furthermore, I don't have $85, and that's what she's telling me that is the new plates are cost. You know what she should have said to me, or what should be in place? I notice now that they're catering the license plates now is for all of these new cars that they're bringing into the island, which is adding to more problems. Instead of dealing with what we have here, I can't get plates in my car, and then, she can tell me that I have to wait.
Caller? Okay, want to thank that caller for that. We have to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Sending money to your family overseas shouldn't be a full-day process. Stop waiting in lines. MoneyGram, the safest and most convenient way to send money worldwide, offering 3 convenient locations: Shedden Road, Baden Water Sports in West Bay, and at FIS Brack Agency in Cayman Brack. MoneyGram by Financial Integrated Services. Visit fiscayman.com for more information on MoneyGram services. MoneyGram, bringing you closer. Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
on a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Ms. Susan, how many calls do we have still on hold? 2 callers. We're going to make those 2 callers the last 2 calls for the morning. This is certainly a very important and interesting topic, and we're looking to see how we can continue this discussion at an as early as possible date to continue this discussion. Yes. Meanwhile, we have the 10 recommendations, and we will continue to talk about those on For the Record until we can get Mr. Harris, and Mr. Williams and Mr. White back on the show. Let's go to the last 2 callers. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O'Connor.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning to you guests, too.
Good morning to you, sir. Morning. Thanks for your call.
You're welcome. We have 600 students graduating every year in the Cayman Islands. And they're all going to need vehicles to go to work.
Hopefully not.
Well, that's one of the first questions they ask you when you're applying for work, if you have your own transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And no one on a work permit should come before them. And I have a question. What are the government's plans to solve this solution? What is the government's plans and solutions to this problem?
Okay. Obviously, you haven't been listening to the first part of the show, but there are 10 recommendations that are being made. So please continue to listen, and you will hear about those recommendations. In particular, when it comes to ownership of vehicles by Caymanians and ownership restrictions on work permit holders as well. Let's take the last caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
First, good morning to your guests and to everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have 3 things to say about this motion. Number 1, I am against 100% this motion.
What motion?
Because this committee, Austin doing about cars, and he thinks cars is the problem in Cayman. Is the government is not providing proper roads in Cayman, and that's the problem. Second thing about this issue, this issue gonna make certain people more rich, the car dealers, and this is something I question why certain people be allowed to trade. Is this the freedom and democracy in
and your next point very quickly because we're running out of time.
The next point, the 2 MLAs, they are sitting in your studio are failure to this country, and they are failing this.
Thank you very much, caller. We're going to go to the dealer who is here, Mr. Tony Williams, and we want to talk about the composition, what the dealerships bring to it, and the issue of affordability.
Okay, what we're looking at from a dealership structure is everybody wants to be able to move around comfortably and conveniently. And dealerships like my dealership, we bring vehicles in that you can get for under $10,000. Yes, we have vehicles that are more expensive, but that's not the point. The point is you can get a vehicle for under $10,000, which is fairly affordable. The new car dealerships, they have vehicles that some of them start under $20,000. So it's not really, to me, a matter of affordability. It's really a matter of convenience. How convenient is it for you to get around? And people, I say here, suffer from separation anxiety when it comes to their cars. Everybody thinks that they have the need of a car because the public transportation system is not what it should be. Yes, we know that we have challenges on both ends, but what we're proposing here is a two-pronged approach. We monitor what comes in, we keep vehicles affordable, we allow people to buy vehicles that they can comfortably afford, but at the same time we offer the alternatives of public transportation. So it's not a matter of dealerships trying to shut down the system or take over the ownership of every vehicle that comes through the ports. No, that's not it. It's a matter of accountability, keeping things sorted, allowing government to be able to monitor what is coming in, and also that people, it's so unfortunate, but I see it all the time where folks are being ripped off by unscrupulous dealers overseas who are sending them cars that should not even be exported from those countries. They end up in Cayman, they end up in garages, they clog the system, and then they end up in the landfill. So these are all issues that we are trying to address right now, hence the reasons why the dealers are part of the committee.
Okay, I'm going to read one very quickly. One last comment that we received says here, the late Mr. Bo Miller, being the visionary that he was, fully articulated the restrictions on work permit holders operating their own vehicles 25 years ago in concert with a proper public transportation system. 2, providing a proper public transportation system requires not only assets but effective management and a disciplined workforce. Here is a suggestion. Ask for assistance from the mother country in training drivers and seconding personnel and drivers for 6 months at a time for drivers to understudy them for a proper disciplined system. I'm not sure that the UK system is any more disciplined. Driving on the roads, maybe their public transportation to a certain extent is, but other than that, I'm not sure that I agree with this caller. I want to give all of you an opportunity for some closing comments. We will start with Mr. Tony, then on to Mr. White, and Mr. Harris, you will have the last word.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, OC. Yeah, what I'd just like to say is the whole reason for this committee is to find solutions. And hence the reason why we're here this morning, asking the public to give us the feedback that is necessary for us to process so we can come up with solutions. We talk a lot, but then what do we do? We are now trying to act. So we're asking the public to truly let us know what they think and look at it from the point of view of we are working towards a solution to the problem we all face.
Okay, Mr. White.
Thank you, and very well said, Tony. I know that I sit in government caucus every Monday, and sometimes when I have the honor of acting as minister, I sit in cabinet, and there are a few serious, high concerns that the government have, and one of them is the traffic. And I know with the minister, the Honorable Joseph Hugh, he is working hard and non-stop in trying to get a road system in. But the road system alone will not help. So when the councillor, who is now the chairman of this committee, came to me and asked me to second a motion to set standards for the importation of vehicles, I was truly happy to do so. And being asked to be deputy chair, that's an honor. And I know that this committee, they are very concerned with the traffic problem in Cayman, and we are here to get feedback from the people. We have 10 points now that we feel is high, but they're not the final 10 points. We are hoping to get feedback from the public, and we'll also get we hope that this meeting that we had last week that we can do a presentation to caucus, if that's possible, and get recommendations also. And then when we come up with our final recommendations, we'll put it towards the LA in our next sit-in. So we are working hard, and we're grateful for the committee that we have. And I know with the chairman and the committee that we have, we will work towards solving or going a long way to solving the traffic issue in Cayman.
Okay.
Mr.
Chairman.
Sir, I just want to thank you for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to be here this morning. I also want to thank you for extending the welcome for us to return. Certainly it's something that the committee will embrace. As my colleagues have stated, this public consultation is exactly as it says. We want to hear what the public thinks, not only of the 10 recommendations the committee has come up with that we believe can be easily implemented and tried and could very well, one or a combination of all, lend itself to reducing the amount of traffic congestion and woes that we feel and experience every day. But certainly, provide feedback on things that we haven't thought about. Again, we have a dedicated email address, traffic@gov.ky, that we encourage listeners to use and share their thoughts with us. Those emails come directly to the committee. The committee meets once a week, and we discuss those recommendations. In the course of the next coming days, we hope to develop a survey on SurveyMonkey that will also be distributed island-wide, largely through social media. And again, this is looking for the public's feedback. Callers talked about a few things. The last caller, who again I don't agree with his remarks, but he asked, "What is the government solution to this problem?" Again, we believe there are a number of ways government can be the leader. When we look at staggered time, for example, the sheer size of government and the number of shift hours that are worked, public works, NRA, you name it. We could structure a pilot program with the public sector to test this theory of whether or not staggered time has any virtue and does lend itself. I suspect that a lot of the recommendations can be rolled out as pilot projects to see whether or not they can in fact work. Likewise, carpooling. The public sector can play a major role in that. A caller prior talked about extending the bus services and working with the hotels. I agree with him. We've had discussions with hotel managers as a committee. We've had discussions with supermarkets, in particular, because of the shift work. You have teams that arrive, before 6 a.m. to prepare. Then you have the teams that arrive to deliver the services, and then you have the cleaning crew that late night that don't leave until 11 o'clock midnight. But we don't have public transportation that runs past 10 o'clock. So extending public transportation hours is certainly very much on our radar. And again, focusing on those businesses that we believe can roll out pilot projects as a means of testing these theories, because they are theories. But they're also theories that have been applied in other jurisdictions. When we look at our 10-point recommendations, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not, discovering a new science. We need only look at our partners and our colleagues in the region, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad. We have the Bermuda model, which is the extreme model. But we have enough guidance to suggest that these recommendations have been implemented in the region. They have had merit, and they certainly will lend themselves to reducing traffic congestion. And that is our entire goal. So again, I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I want to thank the listening audience in advance for the feedback that they will provide. This week, on Friday, we'll be on Rooster having this discussion as well, but certainly I'm looking forward to returning to this program so that we can perhaps engage as much as a full show on this subject. Precisely. And now with this information in the public domain, I want to encourage the listening audience to think about it. If you're in traffic, you live in the Eastern Districts, he who feels it knows it. Yep. So the stress that goes along with it. You undoubtedly have thoughts of your own. We want to hear from you. And again, once that public consultation process is complete, as my colleagues mentioned, we will collate that information. We will add it to our overall recommendations. We will present to the government caucus. And then with their blessing, we will return to the Legislative Assembly where this whole process began and tender our report publicly. Hopefully a debate will ensue with all members of the Legislative Assembly, including the opposition, because this is not a me problem, it's a we problem, and we have to be the ones coming up with the solutions.
Exactly. And it didn't land on our doorsteps just now. It built up to this. Many factors caused this to happen, and it's going to take a multifaceted approach to solve it as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Banks at 12:15 for Talk Today. The Youth Parliament debate will take place at 10:30 this morning as well, so encourage you to join them also. I'm not sure whether or not Radio Cayman will be carrying the Youth Parliament live. Also, if it does, it will be on 105.3 FM as well. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates.
FIS MoneyGram, the safest and most convenient way to send money worldwide. MoneyGram, bringing you closer. And Fidelity Bank. Fidelity, we're good for you.
For the Record was also brought to you with kind compliments of Coca-Cola.
Today's biggest news.